Hey everybody, my name is Steven and welcome back to the Storytime channel. Without wasting any time, let's get into our stories of the day. Increased my temperature so I could get sent home after mandatory temperature taking. This happened around 2011 in Singapore during, I think, the swine flu pandemic. I was reminded of it because of the ongoing pandemic measures. For context, Singapore finally restarted the third school term today, and amongst other measures, students have to take their temperatures in class. Back when I was but a young teen myself, we were at the height of H1N1. Singapore already had several protocols put into place after SARS, and while schools weren't shut down, we did have daily temperature taking. I think it was once at the start of the day, once after lunch. If you hit 37.5 Celsius and above, you were sent to the sick bay or home, depending on how high it was and whether you felt okay. My temperature ran pretty high as a teen. 37.1 to 37.3 was my average temperature, which raised some teachers' eyebrows, but it wasn't at the cutoff and I felt/looked fine, so it was a non-issue. But at least once I was told that if my temperature reached 37.5, I would have to go to the sick bay or be sent home. However, bear in mind, the second temperature check of the day was after lunch, when you had eaten or spent the period running around the field like teens are wanting to do. My temperature post-food/general teen chaos would be just high enough to warrant the sickbay, even though I felt totally okay. The sickbay wasn't uncomfortable and I could usually nap before someone came to check on me. But getting sent down for something I knew wasn't true, that I had a fever when it was just food, irritated me, just because teenage minds work that way, I guess? The teacher definitely knew it too because this happened maybe once or twice a week at least. So the malicious compliance begins. The class I had right before lunch was home ec, naturally. When we started our cooking module, we ended up eating whatever we cooked for lunch, and then one day we cooked curry. Nice, hot, spicy curry. Knowing full well my body heats up like a firecracker when I eat good curry, I gulped it all down. I started to sweat. My cheeks were warm. It was really good curry. And then once lunch ended, we took our temperatures. 37.7, 37.6. My thermometer beeped loudly like the traitor it was. Physically, I was fine, but rules are rules, especially in a pandemic. I waited for 5 minutes and it still registered as a fever. Imagine that. Who knew being in a hot, humid classroom in a hot, humid country after eating hot, spicy curry could keep your temperature up? The teacher asked if I felt okay. She knew I'd had curry. I knew I had curry. She knew my temperature always ran higher. And I guess this is where the malicious compliance kicks in because knowing I felt totally fine, I just said, well, I guess my temperature isn't going down. And so I packed my bag and trudged down to the sick bay. She didn't say anything or looked irritated, but seemed kind of resigned to it. My temperature wouldn't go down past 37.5 after that. It wasn't a fever and I didn't fall sick later, my body just lights up whenever I eat food. So that day, I think I had to have my mom come pick me up. Which I feel bad in hindsight, but hey, safety rules are safety rules. In the end, there was no severe outcome for anybody. I spent a few more times in the sick bay, but I never went home early again. For that reason anyway. But that was the first and only time I deliberately gave myself a fever with someone else knowing that I wasn't sick. And I managed to get half a day out of it despite feeling/being totally fine. So if you knew that you had the ability to fake your temperature and still be completely fine, would you be using that power to your own advantage? Let me know what you would have done in the comments section down below. Dad, I don't belong here. Where my siblings and I grew up, there was a large ESL community, English as a second language. The school system was more tailored to them. Think translators and white being the minority. This wasn't an issue. I'd have been born and grown up there so I could speak the language, but my dad was insistent that we all speak English at home. Education is a big deal to my dad. He therefore made the decision to send us to some of the top schools in our state, Western Australia, when we reached the age of 12. I was the youngest and therefore the last to go. My sister had been at the school for 4 years already and she loved it. It was an all-girls, religious, strict boarding school and she freaking thrived in this environment. She was all about the tartan skirts and matching Panama hat in summer, whereas I thought it looked a bit like someone wanted to dress us like we were about to go boating in a punt in the 1950s. She was never really academically focused. She got average grades at best, but she made some very close friends. I, meanwhile, was the opposite. From the minute I got there, I rebelled against these rules and restrictions but loved learning. One of the stupidest and most ridiculous rules was that I was not allowed to spend time with my brother alone. My freaking brother! I had to have a chaperone with me to talk to my brother. I put up with it for a while and then I started asking my dad if I could change schools. This place was really not for me. The girls were so rich and pretentious and were just so asinine. The teachers were amazing. They put so much effort into their classes and, well, before the internet and laptops were commonplace, this school was issuing laptops to every student because they understood that this is where the world was going. This is back in the 90s, everyone. Yes, I am getting old, thank you for that. Anyway, the school was fabulous, I just didn't fit in. But I wanted what my sister had. I wanted to go to a school with people who had the same mind frame as me. My sister is not asinine or pretentious. She's just so likable that she was adored by everyone. I did not get that personality trait. I'm sarcastic and lack a lot of social cue understanding. I'd found the school I'd wanted to go to. It was significantly cheaper than the one I was at, and so I went to Dad one more time to ask him. He told me that the only way I would be leaving this school is if they kicked me out. I am not the sort to cause drama, and he knows this. He thinks that because I won't act up to get kicked out, that I will suck it up and he won't have to hear about it anymore. Well, game on, Dad. I mentioned that this was a religious school, an all-girls religious school, a compulsory attendance at chapel minimum of 7 times a week but an expectation of more? Well, what do those religious people fear? This is where the Jaws theme song plays and you get all goosebumps from anticipation of the horror. Homosexuality! I got permission to be signed out of the boarding house by my cousin for the weekend. While staying there, I shaved my head. This complied with the school's rules on natural hair and allowable hair length. On my return to the boarding house, there were many questions from the other girls about my hair. I told them that my made-up girlfriend liked short hair. This news soon filtered back to the boarding house matrons and I was called to a meeting. The lovely matron did try her best. She wasn't homophobic, but she'd had a lot of complaints from the girls who had to share a room with me, and then their very entitled and rich and bat poop crazy parents as well. So I was quite helpful. I told her how unhappy I was there and how I didn't feel that the baby cheeses was right for me. She speaks to the headmistress and she in turn talks to my dad, with me in the room on a phone conference call. Headmistress says, "I'm just calling about OP. She's in the room and happy for me to call you." Dad says, "Why? What's happened?" "Well, we've discussed this with her and we believe it will be beneficial to her and to, fancy all-girls school name, if she doesn't continue with her education here next year." Dad says, "Why?" "We just don't quite feel that she is, fancy school name, material." Dad says, "OP, what did you do?" I say, "Dad, I'm a lesbian." There is a pause, and then he laughs. And to the horror of the headmistress, he says the following: "Thought so, you're a bit butch. I'm a lesbian too, I only like women." Yes, readers, that is a stupid joke, but it was the height of humor in those days, when homosexuality was still a reason to be asked to leave a school. It was only 2 more months to the end of the school year, and then we had the Christmas holidays. I came home for Christmas, and when I left, it was to the school I wanted to go to. 2 days before I left home for school again, with my hair now growing out very much like a Karen does, my dad said he was proud of me for finding a way to get asked politely to leave rather than risking my education. Instead of causing a whole lot of drama, acting out badly, doing all kinds of malicious stuff, it was only a malicious compliance and just pretending to be something that religions just frown upon. The discount that cost more. I work at a fast food place that just got a screen in our drive-thru which allows the customer to see what we have put into our registers. The very day this became operational, I had my first taste of malicious compliance. A man comes into our drive-thru and gives his order. I think it was a number 4, which usually costs $7.31 after tax. However, he says he doesn't want the drink, so I tap in the cheeseburger and fries and tell him his total, which is around $6.50. He says he wants the meal, he just doesn't want a drink. He specifically wants the meal discount. I tell him right now I'm only charging him for a burger and fries, which is less expensive than a number 4 meal, even with the discount. He's not convinced and demands I put in the number 4 with no drink. I say okay and put in his full order. Now, our registers have us enter in each item individually and automatically apply meal discounts when they're available. In order to give him the meal discount, I have to charge him for a medium no drink. He got his discount, and his total went up almost a full $1. Absolutely nothing was done wrong here. In fact, OP was willing to try and give them the best deal possible. You don't even have to do that and you're trying to help this guy out, and he doesn't have the wherewithal to understand it would have been cheaper? Completely understandable by OP. Don't touch my product. Be me, work at a fulfillment center as a temp worker, be put on assembly line where I just have to put product and accessories and literature in boxes and then put boxes on conveyor belt, be near the end of the belt where most people's product has to pass me, so I have to wait for open space to place my product. Just downstream from me is also a choke point where an angled rail shunts all of the product to one side in preparation for cartonizing. See person a few feet behind me consistently places their product exactly where it will get caught on rail and turn sideways, jamming the flow of product. Reposition said coworker's product for the nth time and get sick of it. Tell coworker they need to place their product on the belt properly because they are causing jams. Coworker tells me to stop touching their product. Stop touching their product. Jam happens. Get told by same coworker to clear the jam because it's backing up to them. Refuse because they'd already told me not to touch their product. I can imagine this is very frustrating, and I'm hoping that some kind of supervisor or manager or whatever can take notice of the situation and actually correct it, actually supervise or manage. Scary Carrie and the paper plate. My mother-in-law, known hereafter as Scary Carrie, has a thing about not wasting. I agree with her most of the time, but sometimes I think she takes it too far. When my kids were little, we were at her and father-in-law's house having a cookout outside. When it was time to eat, I handed each kid a paper plate and, as I started to serve them, mother-in-law yelled out that I was taking too many plates. They were super cheap white paper ones, not sturdy at all. So I took a few to make them thicker. I explained to her that one plate wasn't substantial to hold the food, but she insisted that it would be fine because that's what the plate was made for. Sure enough, when my daughter carried her full, very flimsy plate over to the table and went to sit down next to my mother-in-law, the thing collapsed and dumped a hamburger, potato salad, and baked beans onto her lap. She started to scold my daughter for not being careful, but I shut that down immediately. A day or two later, I got a call from mother-in-law telling me that she couldn't get the baked bean stains out of her white pants and we owed her a new pair of pants. I laughed in her face, well, as much as one could over the phone, and told her that it was her own fault because she was the one who insisted on the flimsy plate. She hemmed and hawed for a little while longer, then said she would take it over my head, meaning complain to my husband. I don't think she ever did though, or if she did, I never heard anything about it. I think I know what kind of plates she's talking about, those really thin, really flimsy, just white paper plates that just wouldn't hold a whole lot unless you're basically folding them, carrying whatever. I definitely would not trust one of those to hold burgers and potato salad and whatnot, so I think this mother-in-law is probably being way too thrifty with that. But with that being said, that's all the stories we have for today, so what I want to know is which of these stories that I've read for you today are your personal favorite and why? Let me know in the comments section down below. And thank you all so very much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel today. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing and don't forget to turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video from the Storytime channel. And again, thank you all so very much for watching and listening to the Storytime channel.